What's up, gamers, and welcome back for more WotC-20. Today's matchup is Nidoking versus Mukbang, or Mucky Bug, or Muck and Fortress, depending on how you want to go about it. So there will be a type relevance in this matchup since Nidoking is grass weak, and the Muck Fortress deck is a grass deck. So leading off, it's going to be Murkrow against Murkrow. You don't see that a lot. And a Darkness Energy attached to Murkrow is immediate, with a Rocket Gym coming down. Rocket's Hideout giving plus 20 HP to all dark Pokemon on both sides. You can see a Pichu on the bench for Nidoking as well. We'll keep an eye on that for abilities. And a Grimer on the bench. Looks like it's going to be Mean Look and Pass. So the Murkrow can't free retreat. Cleffa comes down. And now we get a Trader putting in what looked like a Nidorino into the deck. It'll probably fetch a Nidoran. There it is. And that is, I believe, is that Aquapolis? Yeah, Aquapolis Nidoran male. 2 usable attacks as well with 50 HP. For 1 Grass Energy, Poison Horn is a flip to poison, and Double Colorless is a scratch for 20. So if it ends up in the active, not the worst thing. And now we'll see there's a Darkness Energy from Nidoking's side as well on the Murkrow. And instead, Gust comes down, hits the Grimer, and then a Shaman. So breaks the Mean Look of the opponent, pulls in the Grimer, which isn't the worst target. That Grimer is from Rocket set. It has 40 HP instead of 50. But it does have 2 usable attacks. Poison Gas for 1 Grass Energy just puts you to sleep, which is slightly confusing flavor text. And then Sticky Hands is 10 damage. You flip a coin. If heads, it does 10 plus 20 more, and you are paralyzed. Otherwise, on tails, it does 10. So very swingy attack for 2 Grass Energy. But if you can high roll with Sticky Hands, it's 30 paralysis is very strong. So now with Shaman down, that's going to be supporter for turn. Both hands have been shuffled into the deck. 4 fresh have been drawn. And the Grimer gets Mean Looked now, so lots of Mean Looking, not a lot of eking. And now for Muck's side, can't quite hand peep from here. And Double Gust will break the Mean Look again, so both sides get to Gust here. Opponent first. Brings in the Nidoran instead of the Cleffa. And we'll see yet another Mean Look here. Cleffa comes down for Muck's side. Second Darkness Energy comes down on Murkrow on active. And an Elm is going to shuffle Muck's hand back into the deck for a fresh 7. No more trainers. We'll keep that in mind. We've also already seen attach for turn, so the only other thing that could happen here is some benching of basics or revolving that Grimer. Pretty quick decision on that Double Gust too to bring the Nidoran male active. Makes sense considering that Cleffa inactive could be game lock, assuming no warp energies or gusts or ways to break the actives out. I wouldn't have minded the Cleffa there just because Murkrow would have to flip heads to do anything. And a Pinecone comes down. Pineco the Pinecone comes down onto the bench. And Nidoran gets Mean Looked. So 1 Neo Destiny Pineco has hit the board. Has a very similar attack to that Nidoran male, to Double Colorless for 20. Now from here, you wouldn't mind evolving into Nidorino. You can see an item finder in hand, possibly considering, yep. Taking a look at the bin right now, we got a Trader, Gust, or Shaman. 1 retreat cost on that Nidoran does not make Gusting very appealing here in terms of breaking a lock. We are going to Item Finder though. I wonder if this will be for Trader. Discards a DCE, that's a hard decision. Usually like those on Nidoking. And a Nidoking. And it is going to be for Gust. And Pineco with a retreat cost of 2 gets gusted in. So it does break the lock. There was a Warp Energy in hand anyway. And now we mean look back the Pineco. So the out was there for the Nidoran in hand the whole time. It was more of a question of how to advance, if you want to go Cleffa or not. Obviously that wouldn't have worked with the Warp being attached for turn. And it looks like Dark Fortress is going to come in and armor up. Now that evolution does break the mean look. So evolution breaks mean look, but armor up basically means that Dark Fortress, if it would be knocked out by damage from an attack, you flip a coin, and if heads, Fortress is not knocked out, its HP becomes 10 instead. So it's kind of like a reusable focus band in that way. Trader comes down for Nidoking to grab a Nidorino. And Dark Fortress does have 80 HP with the Stadium down, so Explosion to deal 60 to itself is not as big of a deal as it usually is. And the Nidorino has evolved. Murkrow comes out, goes to Pichu, gonna try to baby stall on this Fortress it looks like. Does not want to lose the Murkrow with the Darkness Energy for potential locks. And mean looking an opponent's Cleffa is definitely one way to win the game. Assuming that you're not gonna deck out before them if things draw out. Alright, pretty good size hand for Fortress here. Looks like we're going to attach to active, and Explosion will be able to deal 60. It's going to go for it. And it hits, so Fortress nails the Explosion, nails the Pichu. That'll be the first prize of the game. And remember, Armor Up is no longer in effect. Rainbow attaches to Cleffa, dealing 10 to it. Feint Attack would have knocked out the Fortress here, since it deals 20. And Imposter Oak's Revenge comes down on this Eek, so eking with Cleffa made a lot of sense due to the small hand, but it gets Imposter Oak revenged anyway, so it'll be a draw 4. Looks like a Grimer got discarded for that. I hear Fortress almost has to armor up. Explosion attempt instead. And it's a Tails on the baby roll. Nidoran comes down onto the bench. And a DCE comes down onto the Nidorino. So Nidorino is an interesting card. It has a decent attack in Takedown, where it can deal 40, but it takes 10 on recoil. Usable attack, but Nidoking needs 2 fighting for when that comes down. So right now there is effectively no fighting on Nidorino, which is why you see Rainbow Energy. Kind of helps pad things out in case you want to pivot from grass into fighting. And Poison Horn on Nidorino is worth talking about. It's 10 damage, and then a flip to poison. That's another way to get to 20. Or even use poison to get around Dark Fortress's armor up would knock it out. Because poison would not, a poison tick would not count as an attack. Alright, looks like that was an Oak based on the hand. I see 2 Gusts, a DCE. Looks like a Rainbow. Maybe there was a Fan Club in there, not a Shaman. Grimer gets gusted. Cleffa comes to the bench. Grimer is now mean look locked. But we know there's a Dark Muck hiding somewhere. In Boss's Way, good way to pull out either Dark Muck or Dark Fortress if you have 2 Dark lines. Boss's Way is a fantastic tech card. And Dark Muck comes in, so no more free retreating for that Murkrow in the meantime. Dark Muck does have a very interesting ability in Sticky Goo. As long as it is your active, your opponent will pay 2 more colorless to retreat their active. So unless you can hit that Muck with Sleep, Confusion, or Paralysis to toggle that power off, that is going to be very tricky to deal with. Fan Club comes in. Pichu comes down, so that's not bad to see against Dark Muck. Remember, Dark Muck's got 60 HP up to 80 thanks to Stadium. And another Murkrow grabbed with that Fan Club, so it looks like leaning into the lock here. Although my understanding is that this Nidoking variant does not run the Steel package or Steelix like we've seen in other videos. So maybe you don't need a 3rd Nido line on setup. The Pichu and the Cleffa leaves enough room to just go for 2 Murkrow regardless of your opponent's bench setup perhaps. A DCE onto the Murkrow. And Feint Attack comes in, knocks out the Dark Fortress. It's kind of been dangling there for a minute. We saw it as potential option with the Rainbow Energy earlier, but instead Rainbow Energy was used to replenish the hand, get the Eek off, and that resource management has definitely paid off. Rocket Sneak Attack in the hand. I assume we'll see that slam down pretty quick. Another Pineco comes down onto the bench. And here's Rocket Sneak Attack, so hand peep on the opponent, take a trainer, throw it back into their deck, and it will send that Gust packing. And really good hand knowledge there. You can see the Warp, Darkness, Fan Club, and Fighting Energy, as well as another Nidorino. So still no Nidokings. Pitching that one Nidoking early for Item Finder, definitely probably impacting the ability to find another one. I believe this deck runs a 4-4-3 line maybe, or a 4-3-3 line, hard to say. Right off the top, there's Nidoking. Nidorino comes down as well. A Fighting Energy comes down onto Nidoking, but based on the hand, there's no way to get that Nidoking really powered up yet. Murkrow does have the means to retreat. And Feint Attack will hit Cleffa instead. Definitely worth doing because of Nidoking's power to come in later and potentially snipe it off. Earth Rage, if you're not familiar on Nidoking, if it's active, once per turn you may flip a coin, and if heads, you put a damage counter on each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So very interesting that it's a put, interesting that it's on a power. Gets around a lot of things that specify damage reduction or immunity to attacks specifically. So Earth Rage is pretty good. And it can definitely clean up a bench, so we'll keep an eye on that. Looked like that was a Dark Energy off the top, I think it was Dark off the top attached to Murkrow. Feint Attack now spreading damage to the Murkrow, so trying to line up multiple KOs for Earth Rage. And plenty of time to try to do so too, because Dark Muck having trouble getting energy off the top of the deck and onto active to start using Sludge Punch. Sludge Punch is a good attack for 2 grass. It's 20 and poison, so it's always, mostly always looking at 30. And there's a Rainbow Energy for Nidoking. So Nidoking is good to come in and start doing big damage. But first, a final Feint Attack to set up a potential double knockout with Earth Rage. You can see another Darkness Energy in hand. Muck can use it, but it can't attack with a grass and a darkness. It needs 2 grass. It will attach to Muck anyway. But even at 80 HP, Nidoking has huge damage output with Giant Horn. It'll deal 50, and on a flip with heads, it'll deal up to 80. Probably debating whether or not to use the Warp. Nope, it'll instead, we're going to try to get even greedier, Feint Attack the Pineco. Feeling pretty good about the opponent being energy screwed right now. And it looks like that pattern is going to continue here. So possibly a triple knockout coming our way. Not sure what the card off the top was, but it apparently wasn't helpful. Nidoking number 2 comes down with a fighting energy. Oh, interesting. Okay. So Feint Attack to the active, dealing 30. Now there's a grass energy. I would have expected... Well, Pineco only has 40 HP. Could have prized up there. Makes another Fortress a dead draw. Instead, Murkrow gets Sludge Punched, which is going to poison it. And because of the Darkness energy on Dark Muck, it's going to be stronger than usual. Murkrow is up to 40 between turns with poison. So Murkrow almost knocked out there. Down to 10. It's going to warp out and bring in Nidoking. And because Feint Attack tagged the active Dark Muck, Giant Horn's coin flip won't matter here. It's basically a guaranteed knockout. First, we're going to see if Earth Rage is going to get 2 bench knockouts. And it does not. That was a huge Tails. But yeah, tagging 30 was smart. Giant Horn can now hit that 80. Dark Muck at 80 thanks to that stadium. And he'll take the Giant Horn knockout to prize up. Grimer comes down onto the bench. Boss's Way comes down. We'll see if that fetches the Fortress or the Grimer. It is the Fortress. A Darkness energy also onto the Dark Fortress. And an Eek. So trying to get set up here. Earth Rage could still target and knock out the Murkrow, but now Cleffa being active is safe from that. Unless there's a Gust to push it back to the bench. Kind of risky on a coin flip. And Rocket's Minefield comes down from Nidoking's side to remove Rocket Hideout. So all the dark Pokemon on board get minus 20 HP from that. Back to what is printed on their card, and Minefield is down, so Minefield kind of misprinted in its wording as well. When you play a basic from your hand to your bench, you flip a coin on Tails, Minefield will deal 20 to it. And we're going to see a Finder. Is it for Gust? It is. That'll push out the Cleffa. Gives Earth Rage a chance to double KO again. And it's going to pull in a Dark Fortress that is not going to appreciate a Giant Horn. Earth Rage for a potential double knockout. It's a Tails again, big Tails, but Giant Horn will take this Dark Fortress out. Really squeezing on the ability to take a super effective shot at Nidoking here. Might have to high roll with sticky hands at some point. Oh, Dark Muck comes down off of a Boss's Way, it looks like. There is a world where Sticky Hands is paralyzing and hitting Nidoking for 60. Which would be enough to two-tap it without getting Revenge knocked out. Let's see, with Nidoking at 10, it has 110 HP. 2 Sludge Punches would also work, but the Sticky Hands paralysis chance would at least prevent a Giant Horn. Alright, looks like an Elm for Muck's side. Trying to find some basics to bench up. Not that Nidoking would mind that. Earthrage is always happy to see a full bench. And Hideout comes back a little too late to help out the previous active, but Minefield is now off of the board, so Pineco can come down safely. Ooh, and a Yanma comes down. That could matter with a fighting resistance. Oh, just kidding. Everybody missed that. When Elm comes down, usually you leave it out because it indicates you can't play any more trainers, which includes stadiums. Okay, Murkrow comes in. And it feint attacks Murkrow for a knockout on the other side. So once again, Earthrage KO is available here now that Cleffa's out of active. A second Nidoking is now powered up, and an Oak from Nidoking's side is going to give a lot of options. A Focus Band comes down. Usually you see those on Pichu, but it comes onto the active Nidoking, which is fully juiced and not very damaged. And we'll take a Town Volunteer break. Remember with Town Volunteer, if you have 5, you have to take all 5. You can't just put 3 or 4 into your deck if there are certain things you don't want in there. So it looks like it was a Nidoking, 2 Cleffa, and 2 Murkrow. Pricing right now is 3 to 4 in favor of Nidoking as well. Now, if you have a Warp Energy, you can Earth Rage with the active Nidoking, warp out, and try to Earth Rage with the benched one as well. You won't be foregoing your attack for turn since they're both powered up. Ooh, and instead the Muck gets gusted. Earth Rage heads here could be game. All right. Another big tails for Earth Rage. You could retreat out, try to just end the game there. Giant Horn knocks out Dark Muck on a heads flip though. No point in rushing things. You could have retreated for another Earth Rage attempt, but there's no reason to decelerate that much energy. Now Hideout comes in. That removes Rocket's Minefield. And now a bunch of basics will come down. I think there was also a Pineco we saw the previous turn that didn't come down. Yanma's fighting resistance also not super useful when the Nidoking is swinging for 50 to 80. And it looks like we'll discard that Pineco instead for an Imposter Oak's Revenge. So just Nidoking's side gets what we call the Shaman effect, where they'll shuffle in, draw 4. It looks like that is going to be followed up by Energy for turn to Yanma. Fun Attack and Shockwave. Not that it can grief anything right now. And Injured Cleffa comes in for an Eek. Ooh, immediately responded to by Copycat from Nidoking, so both sides getting up to 7. Kind of nullifying that Imposter Oak's Revenge, not that the disruption could do much for the board state. And from that Copycat, there was a Rainbow Energy picked up for Murkrow. Another Nidoran comes down onto bench. To my knowledge, there is no ER in either deck. Earth Rage, finally aheads, pops the Murkrow, which means on a coin flip for heads here, you might see Cleffa knocked out for game. We're down to 1 prize for Nidoking, still 4 for Muck and Forretress. Giant Horn flip is tails. So we're down to 1 prize here. Rocket Sneak Attack, see what that fan club brought out. Shaman is a good target. Yanma now with 2 Grass Energy is 1 attach away from Swift, but Swift can't take advantage of the weakness on Nidoking, unfortunately, so it would just be a slow tick up to 30. Hard to see a good out. For Muck, you could try to, at this point, you'd need to try to do some sort of mean look locking with Murkrow on that Cleffa or Pichu on the other side. Of course, pulling in the Pichu means that you would not be able to put down anything with an ability again. So is the lock possible? Shockwave is attempted instead. On heads, that would have done 10 damage to each of the opponent's Pokemon, ignoring weakness and resistance. Then the opponent with any benched Pokemon would have to choose one to switch with their active. So Earth Rage is a tails. And Giant Horn will be it for knockout. I think they got a flip for that though. Yep. Not sure. Well, okay, that'll be it.